You already know this, that every single network interface card in the world has to have a unique address assigned to it. And this is given to it by the manufacturer. This is the media access control, or the MAC address that gets assigned to the network interface card. Now, this uniquely identifies that NIC because IP addresses get changed. You move a machine from one network to another, the IP addresses change, but the MAC always stays the same. And this is used in a variety of ways. Your layer 2 switches can know, which MAC addresses are tied to which ports they're connected to. We can use it in load balancing situations, and they must be unique. Well, how does Hyper-V deal with this? I've got a server running here. Let's go into that server and show you that he has a MAC address. So Hyper-V is going to assign a MAC address to each network interface card that you put in a virtual machine. I'm going to go ahead and open up PowerShell. Again, I'm not going to maximize this, just so you can keep in mind that we're inside the virtual machine. And let's do this. Let's do an ipconfig all and go up here towards the top and take a look. Here's my IP addressing, but up here is where my MAC address is. So it did get a MAC address. The question is where did it get the MAC address from? And this is the interesting thing. By default, and I'll show you how to change this, but by default, each virtual machine and network interface card that you insert into a virtual machine is dynamically assigned a MAC address, and we have a way of controlling this. In fact, if you take a look at this number 00155D, the first three sets of them there, you'll notice something kind of interesting. Let me minimize this. And I'm going to go to our virtual switch manager, and right down here under global network settings, this is the range of MAC addresses that Hyper-V will assign. Now, you can control this range if you need to. If you need to adjust this range, if you want to make sure that no two Hyper-V roles are, overlapping the range, you can certainly adjust these. But it gives you a minimum and a maximum. If you notice these numbers, well, that's really what we started off with on my machine. Let's look at my virtual machine again. Yep, there. That's the very beginning of that range was what he got assigned. Now, if you do change this range, the machines that you already have up that already have network interface cards, they still retain their MAC address assignment. So you would have, and it gives you a little information message to remind you this, you'd have to remove the adapter and re-add it if you wanted it to be within the new range. And for most purposes, this dynamic assignment of your MAC addresses works just fine. But there are going to be times when you want to specify your MAC address assignment. So let me show you where we could do that. I'm going to cancel this, and I'm going to go to this virtual machine. Oh, let me go to this one because it's turned off. And we'll go to settings, down to its network adapter, and I'm going to open up this plus sign. This is where we were looking at some of the hardware acceleration. And if you go to advanced features, it'll be right here at the top. You can see that this network adapter is going to be dynamically assigned its address, but I do have the option of switching it to static. Now, why might you want to switch this to static? Well, there's several different situations that can occur. First of all, you may have some products, some software products that get licensed by the MAC address that are on the machine. So you're going to want a static assignment so that it always retains that MAC address. Other situations you might run across involve DHCP reservations. Now, there's a great example of where I might move a machine from one network to another, and I want to make sure that even though his IP address is going to change, he gets it from the reservation that I set up. And now, it's not often that you're going to DHCP use reservations to assign addresses to your servers, but this could be for clients, it could be for special servers, that kind of thing. Also, there's situations with, some of your firewalls will be set up for very specific MAC address restrictions. So you have filtering and traffic control based upon those. So if that's a consideration, if that's an issue that you have, you can statically assign it. Now, you may have noticed the little button down here for enable MAC address spoofing. This will allow the VM to have its network interface card change its MAC address in outgoing packets to one that wasn't originally assigned to them as a source. Now, this occurs in some network load balancing scenarios where on a layer 2 switch, your particular load balancer may have you spoof or have the same MAC address across virtual machines. Now, be careful, that's not all load balancing situations. In fact, a lot of load balancers don't have that particular requirement. This is usually referred to as like a cluster MAC address. And in other scenarios, we'll do cluster IP addresses instead. So if you run into a conflict or you have a particular situation where you need to adjust the MAC addresses on your virtual machines, you certainly can. The default is dynamic and works in most situations, but if you have something unique, you can always statically assign it. You know, I think would be a really great time for us to take a few moments and what's coming up next and talk more about network isolation.